All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of, I was going to say Hops Geek News because it's Lauren and I again tonight, but we are not Hops Geek News tonight. We are Hops News. This is the podcast where we talk about beer news. We talk about philanthropy through beer, excuse me. We talk about a lot of great stuff. And we have a really great guest on tonight from a little known place that you guys have heard me talk about probably every single day that I have existed on this podcast. Just outside of Portland, Maine. We will get to her in just a minute, but first things first, if you can go ahead, share us. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, search Hops News. Go to all your favorite podcasting sites, Hops News, and give us a little follow, give us a little share. And without further ado, I am Matt. Tonight, I'm drinking Fast Car, which is a double IPA out of Newmarket, New Hampshire, Deciduous Brewing. I was lucky enough to get to this brewery right before I had to move away from New Hampshire for a bit, and man, they're wicked good. I had to represent the hometown tonight because we got a hometown guest on, so can't wait to talk with her. Lauren, what's going on? How you doing? What are you drinking?
Well, since it's National American Beer Day, I'm drinking out of my Captain America
It
glass because
is.
But I actually got this beer from someone in California. So it's Burning Beard Brewing Company, but it is actually an American lager. So this guy, I did a beer trade with him. His name is Beer's a Trap. So I had to send
Oh
him
yeah.
that Admiral Akbar
I was
beer
gonna
that
say
Tactical
he do
Brewing
the
had.
Admiral Akbar? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So which that was a fantastic sour. And I don't usually go for the basic low ABV lagers, but this is fantastic. I really like it. And I'm about to pop my happy hour vitamins because it's Wednesday night.
Yes. Hey, we have a promo code with them. Do you want to go ahead and get the housekeeping items out of the way first? Hit the promo code. Tell everybody how they can get themselves some of those happy hour items and what they are.
So the happy hour vitamins. So we had the guy on a few months ago, and it's really just a roundabout. Like I've had more than one person look at the ingredients and like this just looks like a multivitamin. But what it is
Basically.
it's the vitamins that basically replace things that are more likely to get depleted when you're drinking. Because as we get older, it's not just a glass of water that's going to make you not have a hangover. So we need a little more help these days. So I love them. I got 3 kids, and we record 2 podcasts in one night,
Oh
and I
my
drink
God.
3 high
Sometimes three.
ABV
We
beers,
sometimes get to
and
three. And it's stout
yeah.
season, although it's stout season for us all the time, so that doesn't really count. But
Well, I love the double and triple IPAs, and 3 of those, and I'll have a headache the next day. But with these magical pills, I have no headache. But no, I mean, everybody sees me take them. I take them every Wednesday, and he says like if you're going to a beer fest or something, or it's heavy drinking, or like when I go on a beercation, I double up. But you still got to eat healthy and drink your water. Don't forget to drink your water. It's very
yeah,
important.
very important. I go in between drinking beer and water. Especially while we record these, I got like a giant glass of water next to me, so
That's why
water's
as soon as
important.
you hit stop recording, we both run to the bathroom.
Yeah, we go run to the bathroom, we pound some water, we're like, oh my God, thank God I'm away from this. But yes, you'll notice that for the second week in a row, it is just Lauren and I. Jeremy is in the process of getting his new job at New Round Brewing set up, so he is not with us tonight. Lucky, I'll be honest, I think he might have died. Who knows? I haven't heard from him, haven't seen him. Is he with us still? We'll figure it out. We'll get answers for you later on. And our
Mm,
last couple things real quick. What?
promo code. I didn't say the promo
Oh,
code.
promo code Hops News, happyhourvitamins.com / promo code Hops News. Um,
There you go.
Last thing, thank you for all of our Patreon members. If you're with us in here tonight, shout out to you. And make sure you get with me by Sunday for our Secret Santa that closes, get you in. Last year we did it live, a lot of good fun things. So enough about us. Let's get to our wonderful guests tonight. We have Miss Carla coming to us from Maine. So how are you tonight? And thank you for joining us.
I'm doing great. It's we survived whatever this nor'easter is up here that was like windy, gusty,
Oh, I saw
crazy
that.
50-mile-an-hour winds today. But other than that, I'm doing great. My dog didn't want to go out, but other than that, it was a good day.
It's like, come on, we got to go outside. And the dog's like, there's got
I
to be
saw
an
her halfway down the
alternative.
she got halfway down the driveway and looked at me and just booked it back to the garage door. It was like, no.
Well, I saw
So
trees had like uprooted in New York and stuff. Like I saw some crazy
Oh, those are
pictures.
no joke out there. Anytime you hear a nor'easter coming, you're either getting a wicked amount of rain or it's going to dump like 2.5 feet of snow.
Well, it was unreasonably windy down here in Florida. So I don't know. I
yeah.
mean, that must have been connected to it because it was windy all day long. I kept thinking it was going to rain and it never did.
Mm. We got whatever a bomb cyclone is here. It actually
Yeah,
rained
whatever
for
that is. I
yeah.
swear they keep making up new names for things. Like, I think they just meteorologists sit around and they're like, oh, you know what would sound cool? Some 90s slang and then a technological term for like a bomb cyclone, man. Like, I swear they just sit around
They're
making that
like
up.
they're like, guys, look, we're 90s kids. Now we're the adults, right? So how can we make this cool? What are some things that we wanted to hear as kids when people were listening to the weather? I got it. Bomb cyclone. What is it? Just a lot of rain. And that's what you're going to get.
Bag of chips.
Yeah. I mean, it did rain though. I'm going to be happy because this is the most it's rained. So I have to live in Idaho against my will. Yeah, it's actually rained here. This is the most I've seen it rain consecutive. From Friday till today it was raining. And God, it was the best. It was the greatest thing in my life.
Well, I will
yes. What are you drinking?
Allagash Nowadays Blonde Ale, which just has a gorgeous day of like an empty beach with a nice one chair to sit in. So it kind of reminds me of the summer. Although I think this is a relatively new release for them. They're obviously known for their like Allagash White and whatnot, but they've been putting out some really cool stuff in this kind of can format for more like regular consumption, in addition to their cool ship and their crazy, their crazy spontaneously fermented, experiments that they put out. But living in their backyard is pretty awesome because I could just go over there and be like, "What are you doing?"
Hey guys, it's me. You're like the neighbor from Home Improvement. You just pop over the fence.
Wilson.
Yeah. Hi. And if you guys love stouts, they have one now, and I'm not sure if it's distroed out there, but I can get you some. They have another one called Night Sky, and it's just a fantastic. It's like a Belgian-inspired stout, but it doesn't really have that like strong yeast characteristic to it. It's just this rich, delicious, amazing stout, and they have them in the taller cans in 4-packs, and they're great. So if you see them, it's just got a beautiful purple label with like the night sky constellations and stuff on it. It's awesome. Man.
Lauren, do you get some Allagash? You get like their white down there in Florida. I don't get anything out here. I'm surprised that they even send Sam Adams out this way, because that's the only beer from back home, back east, that Idaho even like gets out here. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I've found their beer since COVID happened. We've gotten a lot more beer that we usually don't get. Like I have seen Allagash here. Like we've had other halves show up. We've had a lot from Miami, wouldn't normally distribute up here. And I forget there was another one. Oh, Adroit. We get Adroit now too.
Oh,
so
nice.
They have, because I was in Vermont, I think 2.5 years ago, and I brought home an Allagash White and I think something else from Allagash. And they're now, I guess, going to start producing some beer down here, or brewing some beer down here, or they have some sort of distribution channel they're opening up. So we are expected to be getting some soon. If we are just getting their core beers, I don't know. I'm hoping we get a little more, especially because you said the spontaneous fermentation. I don't know anywhere in Florida that really does that.
They don't travel too far with that distro because they need to be kind of like, from the brewery fresh a little bit.
Controlled.
A little controlled, but some of them do sneak out, and they're really good. They definitely, if you've had enough of them though, they're like, you can tell they're made by Allagash because they're just so complex, but that yeast is like their yeast. So it's just this very cool signature flavor that kind of underlies all these cool experiments that they end up doing with, all kinds of fruit. I think they're doing a cool ship apple based beer now. They're doing they have one they do every Halloween. It's called Ghoul Ship, which is that cool ship, which is the open. And then that one in particular just has pumpkin bits put into it, but it's not actually, it doesn't taste anything like pumpkin. They just use whatever the microbes are that are on the pumpkin.
That's so cool.
That is, yes. I saw someone drinking that on my Instagram, and I was like, God, you're bringing up like this time of year I get homesick pretty hardcore, and I was like, that's the stuff. That's the stuff right there. But speaking, you're like, you're your stuff. I've been following you for a while now. I somehow happened upon your Twitter account. And I noticed a lot of things I didn't even think of, such as, why is important for breweries to have websites, things of that nature. So first things first, though, before we dive into what you do as a profession and let these fine people into your world a little bit, I want to know, what was the first craft beer you ever actually drank, and how did you enter this marvelous world of craft beer?
I'm not sure what the first craft beer was, because I had sips of various things happening, but my origin story is kind of that when I turned 21, everybody around me was drinking terrible beer, at like they do.
You didn't like Natty Ice? No?
I kind of stayed away from most beer because everything was domestic, terrible, ultra light, natural, whatever. And so when I moved to a small apartment with a couple of other roommates. So we had like 5 roommates in this big, huge like duplex thing. We lived next door to essentially what the rest of the world knows a package store. It's like a convenience
The
store that
Packy,
sells
yeah.
yeah, Packy. But we would walk to that store, and they distributed. They had any beer that was distributed in New Hampshire. They had at this store. So like if it was distro there, you could get it there. And they might have only had like one bottle of it or 1 6-pack of it, but it was there. So we used to go and just pick up basically whatever we had never heard of, each try one, and then kind of like keep one bottle from each one and put it up above the cabinets like you do when you're 21. And at the end of that year, we had tried more than 100 different craft beers, but nobody really took any notes or like followed along with like what we liked and didn't like. So that's how I actually started my beer blog way back in 2007. One of my craft beer kind of like epiphanies though was I had a couple of Dogfish Head beers, the 60, 90, and 120 minute in a side-by-side, and people were like, yeah, these are basically the same ingredients, like totally done at different ratios and times, and this is how different they can taste. And my brain went, what?
You're like, you can do that? Is that legal?
You can do that? Like, how is that only for 4-ish ingredients, right? So, at the time in 2007, all the hype was Colorado, not Connecticut, sorry, Colorado, California, Oregon, West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. And I was, I think, one of the first-ish people to start up a beer blog that kind of like centered on New England-y stuff, because I was just so excited to find anything in my backyard. So I was writing a lot about Smutty Nose and, everything else.
Smutty Nose and their smut labs.
Yeah, and the smut lab series and all that stuff.
Can I brag real quick? I don't mean to cut you off. There. The next time you go to Smutty Nose, you will see yours truly on the wall. I did their food challenge.
Oh, no way.
I was one of the first people who did their food challenge. I completed it. And after that, they changed it to what it is today. So like they added the milkshake and stuff later on. I think they still have the milkshake.
Oh my God, that's funny.
I had like 2 pounds of burger, a pound of fries. Oh God, it was awful. But yes, I am on that wall somewhere.
Oh, next to John Candy.
No, I am there.
That's so fun. But yeah, so, and, kind of ever since then, I've just been kind of exploring craft beer. And then eventually at some point, when I moved over to Maine, I just kind of focused in on Maine beer. And then kind of went from there. I was the columnist for the Press Herald, which is Maine's biggest newspaper for a while. I was blogging for various people. Now I write for a magazine column. It's just kind of like, I know a lot about Maine beer, and I love telling people about it. I'm just kind of a huge evangelist for what's happening up here, but I'm also really obnoxious and loud on Twitter, which is why I'm sure you ran into my stuff.
No, I mean, I am too. I say, I like whatever comes to my mind. That's what Twitter's for, though, to be loud and obnoxious. But you actually, when you're loud and obnoxious, though, you actually talk about important things that actually caught my eye. And I was like, I never thought about that. And one of the big things I was following along was like the importance of breweries to have websites. And it had something that was always at the back of my mind, because I was, every time I go to look up like hours, I want to see what's on tap, it'll take me to Facebook. And I'm like, Facebook is literally like, I hate Facebook. If we didn't have this podcast and stuff that went through it, or I have family members that I'm like, I don't want to call anybody, like here's a picture of my kids, I wouldn't have Facebook, to be honest with you. But you had mentioned that. And so it was like, oh, wow. And so you also do website things for breweries and things as a side gig, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I have experience in my previous job. I was doing a lot of user interface testing and things like that for, I used to work for NASA, and I did a couple of education and outreach, basically websites and online materials and online interactives. So I was kind of the tester that always made sure that it worked and that it was accessible for everybody, that type of thing. So I got really used to critiquing web interfaces. So I also have some of the coding background as well, but there's so many new tools now that are really, really straightforward for someone to set up their own website. Whereas 5-10 years ago, you needed a programmer to do it. You absolutely don't anymore, which is what really frustrates me about the breweries and small businesses that haven't made any effort to make their own website, because it's not hard anymore. Like, there's no excuse really to just be on someone else's platform, and Facebook is not a great platform to be on for many reasons, and especially all the stuff that's in the news lately. Like, it's not great. And at the end of the day, when you have your own website, you own the content that's on that website, and that is not true of any of these free other services that are there. So that if Facebook, the Department of Justice said Facebook turned off your servers tomorrow, all of your content is gone.
Well, we saw that like 2 weeks ago, and then it was
when it
funny because you were like,
right.
you're basically like, I told you.
Right. And and I understand the hesitancy because only a couple of years ago, creating a website was a daunting thing for a non-tech person to do, and that
but not
barrier
for us MySpace kids.
Right. but for the that little bump above us, that the 40, 50 somethings that own breweries now, it isn't. It's something that they never got that hands-on experience. But all of these new platforms like Wix and Squarespace and stuff, you don't have to code a dang thing. So the fact that you can't even put up 2 pages that are like, here's the name of my brewery, here's how to find it, and here's when we're open, like, it's not that difficult. But I do take on some freelance work. I am happy to look at anybody's website and tell you what you need to do, or even just to lay out a plan, for improving things. But I kind of have that user testing eye that I can't turn off. So I want to use it for good instead of just being curmudgeon-y and being like, why didn't they put a button there? So I'd rather help people fix it. But I can't turn off that. It's kind of like if you take one film class, you can never watch a movie the same way ever again. So I can't turn it off in my brain. So at least I can rant about it and try to help people kind of get on the right path, I think, is what I'm trying to do in some of these cases.
No, it's vastly helpful. And I mean, Lauren and I, we were working on, we have a basic website for what we do now. We write some articles, things like that, but we're trying to get that website where it's easy for people to navigate and things like that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times you want to see kind of what brewery you maybe you're on vacation and you're like, all right, what kind of beer do they have? Are they going to have something that maybe my non-beer friends maybe want to get? Do they have a seltzer at least? Or do they have this? And
yes, that's a big thing.
Not having at least the beer list on some form, that's frustrating. At least I find it frustrating. And so, yeah, and it's something I always got frustrated by, but then I happened upon your page and I was like, wow, it's actually way more important than I even thought.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of tiers of why it's so important. One is just that you need to have that information somewhere accessible. And if you're frustrating your customers, that's not a good start, right? Like if you can't find the information that you need quickly and it doesn't come up in a Google search and it doesn't come up on, where it's supposed to, that's not good. You're not going to get that customer sometimes, or you're going to be frustrated before they even walk in the door, right?
Right.
But, and then as I mentioned, that ownership issue is that, even though a lot of people are on Facebook, not everybody's on Facebook. So there are some people who, when it clicks to Facebook, they will just back right the heck out, and they're never going to see what you post there. Yeah. And I'm not saying that people should necessarily abandon their Facebook pages. Like I said, a lot of connectivity there. You mentioned, you use to promote and those types of things, but it's a tool for that. It's not a tool to be your primary source of your own intellectual property and your own information. And I just think we need to stop treating it like that. But I've been saying this, unfortunately, for 7 or 8 years now. And I don't know if it's changed, but I'm hoping that I can kind of, especially with that recent Facebook outage, maybe it's the fire that needs to be, at their feet to kind of motivate them to look. Yeah. But I'm trying to reassure everybody that it's less expensive and it's less difficult than you think. It really is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think nowadays it's more important than it was even 10 years ago because, like Matt was saying, people are planning beercations now. And I live in Orlando. People aren't really coming here for the beer. They're coming for Mickey Mouse. They're coming for Universal. But you see it all the time. These people are stopping at breweries. And if they can go on there and see, actually somebody recently, Stacy reached out on the Geeks page and was asking Matt and I questions about beer in Florida because she's visiting her parents down here. And she was asking which breweries have seltzers. And I don't drink seltzers. So I looked up Tactical and they had it on there. And I looked up the couple others she was planning to go to. And I'm like, I know Hourglass just released one, but I don't know about this other, brewery. And I looked it up and I couldn't find anything. And another big thing breweries do is they'll have a random day that they're closed for an employee function or a special event. And they'll post it on their social media, but not on their website or vice versa. And so that's always fun.
Yeah, there's a brewery, and I won't name the city that they're in, but they're in the way far reaches of Maine, and they do that periodically. So people will go, I want to go to every brewery in Maine. I will drive all the way out to this middle of nowhere brewery, and then they get there and it's shut. And it's I've heard some
so frustrating.
excellent waste reactions to that happening, because it says, oh yeah, we're open Thursday through Friday, and then it's like, oh, you get there and it's like, oh no, it's Bob's birthday, we're not open today.
It's Bob's birthday.
So
people also don't realize that in Portland there's like 26 breweries alone.
Yeah,
and there's a lot more beer there than people real. But then also you've got the ones, if you go through Kittery, come up that way, you've got a bunch there. Portsmouth is close by, and then
we have like 175 breweries in the state, and most of them are in the southern Maine kind of area.
Yeah.
So like that's the other thing that people ask me all the time on Twitter. They're like, "Oh, I'm coming up to Portland for a half day. Can I go to all the breweries?" And I'm like, "No,
not at all.
You need to narrow that down. Do you want like one really really good IPA, one really good sour, and one you need to focus your parameters. You cannot go to Navarre Res and Allagash and Lone Pine and Rising Tide and Sebago and whatever in one day. It's just not possible. You can't do it.
Right. It's like people, can I do all the rides at Disney World in one day? No, you can't.
No, because one ride you're sitting there for 4 hours. But
well, even if you didn't have lines, you couldn't do that.
Right. And so if you're coming to Portland, that's my little plug to come for a weekend at least, and then I can give you a couple of recommendations.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful there in the first place. Like, I mean, a lot of the breweries are close enough to like the ocean side there that you can enjoy a nice little beer, and then you just walk up and down, see the cruise ships, things like that.
We have a nice little collection of what I would call hubs now. So like if you want to go up to where Allagash is, there are like 9 breweries up there. If you want to go down to by where Rising Tide is, that's another 7 or 8. And then also there's cideries and kombucha and all kinds of other stuff in that area. And then there's over by Bissell Brothers, there's a few in that vicinity. And it's just like, what's nice is that you can kind of plant yourself, walk between these, especially Industrial Way up by where
I was going to say that's the one spot I love to hit, and that's how I found like Foundation, Battery Steel, Definitive, was going to Allagash and realizing there's 5 breweries right there
across the street. So it's pretty fun to kind of plan your day around that. But also we have some really excellent. There's one really excellent bus tour group, or tour group in general. It's called the Maine Beer Bus, Maine Brews Cruise, and they just do an awesome job. And they'll just be like, "Oh, okay, you want to go to 4 breweries in a day? We'll bring you all over the place." And it's fun, but there is a lot, and I think there's a lot more than people realize. Oh, yeah. I will give one tiny shout out to the Maine Brewers Guild. If you go to their website, you can actually plot out like a path of like breweries you want to go to, and like put them on a map, and it'll. I was
going to say they have the map that's really simple.
I've been waiting for like a national version of that forever, just so that I can be like, oh, I'm going to Chicago, I need to do X, Y, and Z, and but the Maine Brewers Guild, very nice job there.
Yes, that has been one of their good things. So working with the websites, being so ingrained in the beer, you've been doing this a lot longer than kind of craft beer has really been. I don't want to say a thing. It doesn't. But craft beer really just started hitting like in the last 7
before the hype.
Yeah, the hype.
Yeah, so I started in 2007, which is arguably right before like the next surge of breweries. Right. So like when Maine Beer Company and all of them, like in like 2009-ish, went in that absolutely hockey puck growth ridiculousness that happened in like 2010 to 2012. So like I was a little before that, which was really cool to see it evolve from there. And now we're in this kind of almost postmodern, kind of era for beer where, okay, now we have these either very, very specific breweries popping up or these very, very local breweries coming up. And a lot of them are focused on the hazy beers or the lactose beers. And it's just a really interesting landscape change. Like that is absolutely not what was going on in 2010. It's not what was going on in 2007. So I do feel like a veteran. I feel like an oldie, but it's not that. I mean, there was a different bigger boom in the 90s, and a lot of those breweries didn't make it. So in Maine we have like 2 breweries from the 80s, one that opened in the 90s, and then the rest have been like 2004 on. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting to think about, because you're like, oh wow, there were more, and then there are not, and then there are more now. And it's nuts. And we came out with a net positive number of breweries through the pandemic as well. We lost 4, but we gained like 7 or 8 or something ridiculous like that.
Wow.
That's actually, that's.
Which is, still, I'm like, what?
Well,
And 2 of the 4 that closed for completely non-pandemic related reasons. They had one, the owner passed away, which is really unfortunate. And the other had pre-existing issues that they decided to part ways by then, not directly because of the pandemic.
Right.
And so it's just like, okay, so we did pretty good. we hung in there. I was really expecting, especially after that first winter, there to be a lot more attrition, but I think our state did a good job of making some programs available, like the paycheck protection and stuff like that, for them to maintain themselves through the worst of it. And they were very creative about how to get out of that dark zone to get better at that.
Now, when you say through the winter, you mean because people don't go out when it's cold?
Well, here's what happened is that all of the pandemic stuff that happened in March, right, which is not the end of our winter, but like
we still get snowstorms in like April.
So basically, the first summer that they would have, a lot of these newer breweries would have had like a full summer, was basically cut off. Like there was, very little outdoor service allowed because they didn't have space. They weren't set up for that. They were just set up to have a little tasting room, and you can't be inside. So a lot of them had none of that. But the winter problem was that because the restrictions basically in our state were no indoor dining and no whatnot.
Nobody wanted to be outside. Okay.
No, it's like 2 degrees out. So people did really creative things. Like Rising Tide had these plastic bubble tent things that you could reserve a little reservation in, and they pumped heat into them like individually. A lot of them invested in those towers of flamey things so that you could get the propane heaters, sorry. And
I feel like those do nothing. They're a facade.
They don't do enough. Yeah. But if you're diehard, like I sat out there and
I was about to say I would be the one sitting out there bundled up drinking a beer outside.
But what really needed to happen, but after that winter, essentially what usually happens with breweries in Maine anyway is that we have a lot of tourists that come in the summer. Oh, yeah. So a lot of your net positive revenue is summer, right? And then you live off the locals in the winter, and then you're net positive, whatever. But if you don't have that net positive coming into winter, then you're really screwed when you need to ramp up your production for the following summer. So what they put a couple of programs, grants and stuff in place that breweries could then apply for. And then they changed some of the rulings that said, okay, you can have some outdoor space or you can have limited indoor seating if you do X, Y, and Z. So they really were they were trying really hard to be responsive, and the breweries were trying to do whatever they could within there to like salvage some of that business. But it was that first winter in particular was very, very difficult for a lot of them.
Right.
I'm glad that they came out on the other side alive. Because it's not a year-round place to be outside. It really is never meant to do that.
Right.
And
I was just wondering, so in general, the winters tend to be less sales than summers up there.
Oh, by a lot. Yeah. By a lot. There's some statistic, especially with the cruise ships coming. There's some statistic that like Portland's population doubles for certain months of the summer because
and then they all come down here during the winter.
Listen, there's only 2 places that New Englanders go. It's home and Florida. Like that's
right.
Really
so they're all here in the winter, and all our breweries do good in the winter.
Pretty much. I'm very curious. So I think one of the great things that I saw a lot more happen over back Northeast was deliveries. Do you think that also was like a great implementation, however you say it? Sorry, I'm illiterate tonight.
Yeah, we had one company spring up that would do essentially fee-free deliveries for the breweries. So in other words, they weren't charging breweries anything to use their service to get their deliveries done. It was called Car Hop. Very unique, in that they're not trying to get money out of the breweries. They're just trying to get money out of the customers instead. And that was actually really successful. They did a bunch of like runs up in different areas. Like, okay, we're going to these breweries today. We can deliver tomorrow. Because a lot of the culture in Maine, especially in the summer, is go to the beer release and bring it home, right? And if you're not going there, these are not available. They're not distributed in grocery stores. They're not distributed in your stores. So we were really kind of cut off from a lot of that beer, especially the ones that were small enough to not have distro. So they became like the fake distro in the middle of it. In terms of whether or not that's going to be a sustainable or lasting impact in Maine, I'm not sure. Maybe in town Portland, but like for me, not being in Portland, it was very difficult to like find a schedule of the day that they were going to come out this direction, or I'm not close enough to the breweries that I want the stuff from. But we did do a lot of like redoing tasting rooms so that there's like a dedicated space just for pickup of orders and ordering stuff online so that it would be ready for you to go. That I love. So as long as I can, go there, I can basically show up. They can give me the case of whatever. I can say thanks. And get in and out instead of standing in the same line as the guy that wants a flight, and doesn't know what he wants. So,
stands there for 5 minutes, like, ooh.
Yeah,
and then he
exactly.
orders like the same thing he's done 90% of the time.
Yeah,
I like that they were bringing it to your car because, like, I got kids. I don't want to get them out and have to bring them into the brewery, and so when they can just bring them out to my car, I was like, this is amazing.
Like run inside, get my 4-pack, and then I come out, and then like somebody happens to see my kid just chilling in the car, and I'm like, I promise this is for home. I'm not that kind of parent.
Yeah. Well, I've made the comment
on the way back to the car. You're fine.
You're just like, you pull one out. Well, like, those kind of days.
I was in ABC Liquor one time, and I mentioned my kids being in the car, and then I had to like clarify. I'm like, my oldest is 17, and she's driving, so I didn't like leave my young kids locked in the car.
Right, like not that type of mama. Leave me alone.
I know. I don't want to be on the news. It's fine.
Yeah. I do have a question, kind of shifting back. What I need to know, or I don't need to know, but I'm very curious, since you have been doing this, you've seen a lot of different things happening, a lot of different trends. Which trend is kind of the most surprising one that has caught your eye over the last, decade of this boom that we've had?
I was really, honestly, very surprised that the alcohol by volume trend went back down. Because when I first started in 2007, it was like at the beginning of like, okay, everybody just wants to make really flavorful beer, fine. But in 2010, we had this arms race of everything has to be either extremely hopped, extremely high ABV, extremely sour. Like everybody was like trying to outdo each other. So going out to drink, these tap lists would be filled with things that are 9, 10, 11% beers. And for me, that's not nearly as enjoyable as having a couple that are like in the 6, 7, 8. And for a while, there was this kind of misconception that if it had a low ABV, then it wasn't as good as, or is not as fancy or worthy or worth seeking out.
You're not worthy.
Right. They were higher ABV, right? And so I thought, oh God, this is just going to go to the moon, and we're just going to be stuck with either, domestic light, whatever, or just really, everything 7 and up. And I think that there was this nice pendulum shift that happened, I think maybe around like 2014, where people were like, maybe we don't need that all the time. But so there's a lot of really great beer going on underneath 5%. And I love that. Like, I just love the fact that like Rising Tide has this beer called Maine Island Trail Ale. And I think it came out in 2013, 2014. And it's hoppy, it's flavorful, it's awesome, and it's like 5%. So like we drink them all summer. Like it's just summer beer that everybody brings with them to the beach, brings with them to, whatever they're doing. And it's great. And I think that, there's a place for the high alcohol beers, but I love, but was also surprised by the fact that we swung back the other direction. The other thing that did surprise me was the seltzer thing. But in a way, I knew we were going there because all of the fruited stuff was happening in beer. We were making everything progressively sweeter and fruitier and candy-like and pastry-like. So it was clear that there was some demographic out there that wanted beer that didn't taste like beer. And there needed to be something for them. And it started with that not your father's root beer craziness.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then that evolved into the seltzer landscape. Now, is the seltzer, going to, be, universally high volumes? I don't think so. I think we're going to level back down, but there's a place for that genre of beverage, right? Like there's a place for cider, there's a place for that. I think that exists. I think we went a little overboard with the seltzer.
Yeah, like you don't like the Bud Light flannel. Hey, first of all, Shipyard's pumpkin seltzer's not that bad. I have had.
I still haven't tried that one. I will try it, but I won't drink it.
It's not that bad.
I did not like that.
Listen, I am a.
But
if it has any pumpkin in it, I'm probably gonna drink it. Let's be.
I tried the Bud Light one this weekend at a friend's house, and at first I was like, "Oh wow, this smells really good," and then I tried it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." So I didn't like any of them. I thought I was gonna. They smell great.
I don't like seltzer even when it's not alcoholic.
I don't really either, though.
I need to qualify that every time I rag on seltzers a little bit, is that this is not my genre that they then just added alcohol to. It's like something you're trying to get me to like as a non-seltzer drinker, as a beer drinker, and to me, I can't cross that bridge very far. But no shade on the people who do enjoy them. Like, if that's the flavor that you're seeking, more power to you.
To
like,
each their own,
and honestly, if it means that maybe some of the brewers will start shifting a little bit towards making beer that tastes like beer again, I wouldn't be super sad about that. But that's me, because I'm an old curmudgeon-y in the thing. I'm like, what is this lactose baloney?
Give me back my beer.
See, all the trends though, it's like there'll be one brewery that just like nails it, and you're like, oh, okay, I thought I didn't like this style until this brewery made this, and I was like, shit, now I like sours. I didn't see this coming. So yeah, you never know what you're gonna get, because I've had a couple
but
I've had a couple good lactose ones, but sometimes they're too sweet.
I think that's the problem up here, is that there are so many that I have not found a way to determine where the standout good ones are. So I keep trying okay ones that I don't really love just the experience of. And I have had a few really good ones, and I have had, a few really like unbearable ones. But it's one of those things that when it first starts as a style, like the whole hazy beer thing didn't bother me, because when you started with Heady Topper, right? Heady Topper was like the archetype of the best version of that. Right? So then everybody wanted to be that. So they wanted to be as close as they could to that. So if there was this wonderful golden period where anytime you ordered a hoppy beer, a hazy, it was great. And now we've gotten to like phase 2. And now we've gotten to phase 2 where everybody knows that hazy beers are popular. So they feel like they should brew one to varying degrees of quality and success. So when I go out, I don't know if I'm ordering one I'm really going to like, that reminds me of Heady, because I love Heady, or that it's that like hop acrid burn thing that whatever they all have. I don't know, whatever that taste is. There's a stringency there that I just not a huge fan of. I miss my West Coast IPAs. If that comes back ever, retro fashion.
I can get you some from out here. I can get some your way. Don't worry. I can get you some.
I mean, and there's still some really good holdouts. Like there's some beers that are brewed out here. Rising Tide Cutter is a great example of one. Sebago makes a beer called Hop Swap that does it all the time. Oh no, Whistle Punk. I'm sorry, Whistle Punk. So there's a couple of like holdout, really good, year-round West Coast styles. And when people try them who have only had hazies, they're like, they don't understand. But I'm like, yeah, this is
wow, that only had hazies. That's so funny, because I see West Coast as more like an introductory IPA. But I guess if you're jumping into the beer scene in the last few years,
you don't get a lot of West Coast out that way necessarily. It's a lot of the New England hazy IPAs. So
because it's named after them.
That's what I started drinking personally from being out there, was the New England hazies. And now I am out in the West Coast where you don't see a lot of the New England hazy. It's just a matter of where you're at, basically.
We get a lot of the New Englands down here, but I think West Coast is picking back up, though.
Yeah, it might. And again, it might just be that pendulum coming back, right? Like that we went really, really high ABV. Now we're really low ABV. Maybe we went too far into hazy land. Maybe there's a couple of people who are calling for their comeback. But I don't know. I haven't seen anybody else say that. I'm just saying that because I want that to happen. I'm not sure if it's actually a thing.
I've seen a few people
will it into existence, okay? I've seen like movies get memed into existence, so I guarantee you this could be one of those things.
Oh, I'm a haze boy. I'm staying in my haze.
Yeah, and I don't think this haze has to go away. I would just prefer it not be like 95% of what's on tap everywhere I go. Like I would really like there just to be a little more variety in general, because every brewery has I'm sorry, overgeneralizing, but a lot of the breweries have 2 or 3 different hazies, right? So when you go to a beer bar, they have 9 breweries represented. They're all hazies. 9 breweries. So it's like, God forbid I want a stout, so. Yeah. So I'm a little fatigued at that, because sometimes I'm in the mood for that and sometimes I'm not. There are other places that do a much better job of, keeping those, more balanced, and they pick, purposefully that, they're more curated or whatnot. But it is like, if I'm going anywhere, it's like, and okay, there's 3 hazies. Yep.
There's 9 hazies and a seltzer. Enjoy.
Yeah. Enjoy.
And I'm like, all right, I got to get 3 of these beers because they're all hazies. But with the high ABVs though, I think too part of that was like all of a sudden, because I remember going out one night and saying to my husband this was probably like 2014 when all of a sudden World of Beer started to show up, but we really didn't have a lot of breweries down
that's
here.
right.
And I'm like, I don't understand why I'm so hungover. I had like 4 beers, and my husband's like, they were all like 10%. And so I think people just realize, well, I can't drink all day.
Yeah.
I'm drinking
That was what I was gonna say. Is
10%.
I don't want to go to the brewery. Say it's just like
trashed.
me by myself. I got a day off. It's just me, and I want to enjoy beer, but I also don't want to drink a 10%er because then it's like, well, I'm only gonna have one, but I want to
Or
try
get
a
a
couple of the
DUI,
others. You
or
know,
worse.
so if you can get those, 5%ers, things like that, then I'm gonna drink those.
Right.
Another one of the beers, I know it's from like a bigger brewery, but Harpoon, they always did a rec league, which is like 2.5%.
Oh yeah, I like that beer. That's a nice beer.
Oh,
That's
I
a-
loved
that's
it
near
because
beer.
I would take that. I would take Baxter. I would, a couple of
Yeah.
these lighter beers, and those would be in my bag when I go hiking up in the
Yep.
White Mountains. And it's just like, well, they're really light, really easy to drink, but I can still get
Yep.
a lot of those hop flavors, and I'm also not gonna like get tanked on the trail or things like that.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's what's great about athletic too, whether you're just drinking
Yeah.
the non-alcoholic beer or mixing it in. And yeah, there you go.
Is that
See?
the
I
that's
need
the
to stock
pumpkin
up
one?
on more of those.
You snagged
Yeah,
the
so I
pumpkin
just
one.
opened the pumpkin one. So they have so we're talking about Athletic Brewing Company, which is the largest non-alcoholic craft brewery in the US, I would argue. Other than, the big guys who do their, Christmas NAs or whatever. But Athletic, what I have really enjoyed, and I know that they're big, they have a big marketing budget, all that stuff, but like their beer tastes like beer. And it's less than 5% ABVs. So the reason I drink it is that I space myself out, kind of like that, where it's like, oh, okay, I might have one strong beer, and then I might have an NA beer, or I'm just absentmindedly drinking when I come home. Like I don't necessarily want to be buzzed, but I want something flavorful that goes with my food or whatever. And it's just a really nice thing. They had this one is Dark and Gordy, which is a special edition. It's a pumpkin beer. So I had to order that, and I posted that on Twitter too. I was like, I just ordered a non-alcoholic pumpkin beer. So judge away.
And you can have it mailed to you because it's non-alcoholic.
Yes,
so if
that's
anybody
the
wants
best
to
part.
try it and they don't get it,
freaking lovely. I love that. I wish there was some way I could just have beer mailed to me. I'd never leave my house.
Same.
But in general, this is actually really good. It's kind of a dark. I want to say like a kind of a dark porter base, which I guess I should have inferred from the Dark and Gordy name. I didn't actually read it before I did it, but it's a porter style, and it's got this kind of really earthy finish to it. It's nice. It's a nice, like, I wish this was a real pumpkin beer too that had alcohol in it. Like, it's decent. I think that's the key. I actually think that's the key to doing good pumpkin beer is you have to make them dark because they have that malt backbone to like kind of back it up. The lighter it is, the more it just feels like you took pumpkin pie spice and went like this into
That's kind of funny because Lauren, you were having this
year.
issue. Yeah, I was gonna say Lauren kept every pumpkin beer she was trying to pour into this glass as a jack-o'-lantern face. She was like, "It's all too dark to see the face," and I'm like, "That's how you know it's a good pumpkin beer."
Anymore. I
You'll
agree,
have to
though.
make a white pumpkin face on the other side.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. Well, I have a stout glass that I have a Jack skeleton face that's white, so it shows with the dark stouts. But I'm not going to complain though. Like I've had a brown ale this year. I've had a stout. I had a white stout actually that you sent me. They'll look great in this glass.
Oh, that's right.
And that was a stout, but it was a very nice balance of pumpkin and coffee. But yeah, I agree. I'm very much so enjoying seeing the different ones because pumpkin beer got me into craft beer because it was like, oh, these are fun, and then what else is out there? And so then I started to think, well, I don't really like pumpkin beers anymore. They're all very sweet and too light. And then they've come like full circle, and now they're doing all these fun things. So I'm liking the trend.
Very happy. Yeah, I'm
it's
very
got to
happy
make me pumpkin glasses.
Well, the problem with a lot of pumpkin
and I drank
beer,
a lot. And to be fair, I drank a lot of Shipyard Pumpkin.
oh
especially
God,
in the early
yes.
aughts, because it was on tap at this great little English beer bar that we went to all the time, and it was like it's fabulous. But I really like kind of that more complex flavor that the malts can kind of add to that, and like that. I'm kind of just averse to super sweet things in general. I think now
I am too.
and
now.
so the sweeter it is, the more I'm like, eh. Not to say that they're not well crafted. It's just not for me. But I've always liked the pumpkin beers, and I was getting a little flack, online for liking them. But I don't care.
I get flack all the time. I am
well,
such a like
things.
I love pumpkin beers, and I'm like now, especially nowadays, I'm like, guys, the world's literally falling apart. let me have this one thing. Like, I don't
Let
care.
people like
Just
yeah,
let me have
like
this. And Shipyard Pumpkinhead, I look, I love that beer a lot. I have one that Lauren sent me that I'm just sitting there saving for like the perfect moment.
I didn't love it this year though. I thought it was better last year. So I don't know
yeah,
if,
don't
if
leave it too long either.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
I'm
yeah.
gonna
drop
drink it
out.
soon
Okay.
because I don't want to sit
Oh,
there.
okay.
But
Halloween. Yeah.
yeah, I will say though, the problem I have found, we were talking about the darker pumpkin beers being more flavorful, but a lot of these breweries, they just think that you can dump a lot of like the nutmeg and the fake pumpkin spices in there, and they're like, the more pumpkin spice, the better. And it's like, well, no, because it carries a lot of flavor, and that's why I like the maltiness of these darker ones, because you get a lot of that flavor, but more organic, I guess is the word maybe I'm looking for.
Yeah. I
Yeah, it
mean,
doesn't taste as NutraSweetie.
but to be fair, a lot of the pumpkin
To be
spice
fair.
products all over the place outside of the beer world, that is what consumers have gotten to expect.
Yeah.
They expect
Mhm.
it to be sweet, and they expect it to taste like you've just put a bunch of nutmeg into something.
I
So,
think that's why I
so
love
there's
To
the
your
that much
pumpkin
Pop-Tarts
cream.
or
and I
your
get it.
Oreos.
Yes, or I live near a Trader Joe's, and every year they
Oh
have like
yeah.
more pumpkin things than I've ever seen in my life, and I have to like restrain myself from buying all of them. Like I literally have
Literally me.
I have pumpkin pasta sauce in the pantry right now because I couldn't resist that, and little tiny pumpkin pastas that are shaped like pumpkins.
I
I
got
don't know why.
I have
I was like I
pumpkin
resisted a
spice
lot of
face
things, and I
masks.
couldn't walk past it. So, yeah,
I got the
you know,
pumpkin.
yeah,
My
Uh,
wife does this FabFitFun, and I'm like, there's some good stuff in here. Last year there was like this pumpkin spice like for a foot bath, and I was like, I'll do it. This
ooh,
year
that's
they gave for fall, it's a pumpkin spice face mask, and I'm like, this is now mine. You can have whatever else. Like, she's like, why do you need a pumpkin spice face mask? I'm like, don't ask questions. I'm gonna smell
that's you
fabulous.
should have had that on for this. That's
I
amazing.
should have. I
Right.
should have. I was gonna order the pumpkin like head. I was actually gonna dress up like the shipyard mascot this year for Halloween, but it
Oh,
wouldn't
that's
have
all.
gotten here
Oh,
in
I should
time.
have worn my Dogfish Pumpkinhead shirt. Dang it!
Oh,
Because
I
I
I
have this
admittedly
drawer
have
of
definitive.
beer shirts open, and I was like, I'll just pimp the Chicago Brew Museum instead of.
I actually
But
wanted to ask about that because I've
yeah,
keep seeing things about like Philadelphia Brew Museum. I actually watched one of their things recently about beer during war times, and that was really interesting. So, can you tell us a little bit about the museum? I'm assuming you've been
yeah.
there.
So yeah, they're actually the reason I wanted to wear it is that in the beginning of November, November 4th through the 2nd, they're doing a beer culture summit, and it's like a
Ooh.
gathering of like educational stuff about beer and beer culture. They have all kinds of panels and things, which is really fun. But the Brewseum itself is an effort to basically capture the brewing history of Chicago. So it's in Chicago. And they also have like a satellite exhibit that goes on at the Field Museum in Chicago. But my friend Liz Garibay is like the curator of all of this stuff. And I've been there. It's very cool. They have all these like historical documents about like brewing in Chicago and how it was,
Oh,
how
wow.
it started, and all these like cool historical pictures. And if you're ever in Chicago, you should definitely check it out. They do events a lot too, so they'll do like beer tastings and tours that go
Awesome.
together and things like that. Just really cool. Like I'm too, so just to have like beer history kind of collected anywhere is also kind of a relatively new thing. So they're really trying to kind of keep those artifacts and maintain them and build that collection so that people can understand about like where we got to now, because there's so much has changed, in the beer
Right.
industry
Well,
as
and
a
they got
whole.
to have a lot of prohibition history there too, I would think.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
I was
Well,
supposed to go
Maine
to
does
Chicago
too,
last month, but dang it.
So, are they doing any of the stuff online? Can anybody attend virtually, or is it
You
only
know
in
what?
person?
I can check real quick, but they did last year do a bit of it online. They put it up because a lot of people couldn't go in person, and I think they're going to do the same this year. But in general, just a really awesome thing to support full event
Right.
schedule. Yes, they are doing virtual events, so you can get an all-day virtual
Ooh.
pass for $25
Oh,
for
that's not
any of the
bad.
days that they're doing. So it's 3 days long, and they're doing. They have all the listing out of like all of the people who are doing talks and stuff. So it's gonna. I highly recommend it. Like
I
if
think
you
we're gonna do that
need
next
something,
weekend.
it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's November 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Fifth, sixth,
So
and seventh. Oh hell yeah, that's next
the
weekend.
Chicago
Perfect.
Brewseum.org is where you can find information about that. But I saw the Brewseum shirt in my drawer, and I was like, oh, I gotta pimp that because it's coming up. So I have been a speaker there before for that event that they're doing as well, and just they're great people. So wholeheartedly support that.
Right. No, I'm a sucker for that stuff.
I am too.
Yeah,
I am too.
definitely check it out.
Well, did you have a question, Lauren, before we get ready to wrap up here in a few minutes?
No, I was just going to talk about that. I went to San Diego Museum and they had a whole beer exhibit that was really cool, and it was all the history of beer and stuff. And then
I love stuff like that. That's what
Me
I'm
too.
talking about. Like if I'm going on vacation, give me that.
Yeah, and in Europe you have a bunch of like the older breweries. Like I've been to Carlsberg, and it's actually considered a beer museum.
Yes, I went to Carlsberg. It's so cool. It's so fun.
So cool. I had a lot of fun until I told.
So fun.
Man.
Well, I had my daughter and my husband with us, my oldest was 12 at the time. And like, of course I took their drink tickets and they were playing foosball most of the time, but like I did the tour and everything. And then I had a great time until I told the tour guide that Carlsberg tastes like Heineken, and she got real offended. So don't do that. I didn't know that was a no-no.
How dare you?
Pro tip. And I learned some really awesome stuff on the tour. Like that is where Louis Pasteur figured out what yeast was, like kind of all this kind of crazy stuff. That's where he worked when he was doing all those experiments on like,
and he had a tap into his room.
Yes, also freaking cool.
That's straight.
So if you're ever in Copenhagen, totally worth it. I rented a bike for the day and biked my way up all the hills to get there, which I did not realize that was a thing. So I like had to sit in the parking lot and like catch my breath for like 5 minutes before I went in.
Well, they have really good public transportation. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, well, I considered it. I was like, oh, it's not that far. You know, bikes are a thing in Copenhagen, so I did it, and I just didn't realize it was all going to be uphill. But on the way home, it was great.
Well, we walked to War Pigs after that, so it was good. Walk off some of the beer and go have more beer.
Yeah, it's a fabulous beer city. If anybody gets a chance to go there, it's so fun. It's such a great city.
Someday this podcast is going to take us there. I promise you.
I want to go back because we had one of the kids with us, so I didn't get to fully. I'm not going to drag her to all the beer bars, so I just have to go back.
Well, guess what? Now she's 18. Now she can go.
Now she can drink there.
That's what I'm saying. Now she can go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Would you look at us?
Don't tell her that. It'll make the trip twice as expensive.
Very true. As we kind of start to wrap up, though, it is Halloween on Sunday. So I had told you before we started, I got to know two things. First things first, what is your favorite Halloween movie?
My favorite Halloween movie is definitely The Worst Witch with Tim Curry.
Oh my God, I remember that. I have. My wife,
so
we watched it, I think, last year.
Basically Harry Potter, before Harry Potter was an inkling in What's-Her-Face's mind. Like, so it's this girl who's like awkward and weird, and she goes to this witch academy and she screws everything up, and then she has to save everybody from these evil witches at the end, and then they all laud her as being awesome because she's not screwed up. But the crux of the climax of the movie is that the Grand High Wizard comes to visit and inspect their school and like get a flight demonstration or whatever from all these witches. And the Grand High Wizard is Tim Curry, who sings this unbelievably 80s ridiculous song with all these special effects that are terrible. It's wonderful. If anybody ever asked you like that question of like, what movie do you know Tim Curry from? Like, what was the first movie you saw Tim Curry in? It was that. And he's not a main character. He's in it for like 15 minutes. That song alone. Just look up like, Worst Witch Tim Curry song. It is amazing.
But like all you need is 5 minutes of Tim Curry in any movie, and he makes the movie.
Yes.
Like, he is one of the best actors that we'll probably ever see.
But I related to that a lot because I was an awkward kid, so it was like, okay, so I'm the awkward mess up, but I can still save everybody, so.
I love that.
And then last one, what is your favorite Halloween memory?
I would say there's a bunch of collective ones now looking back on it are adorable. And at the time I was like, what? So I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and almost every single Halloween it snowed. So we had whatever costume we were wearing, we would have to have a snow coat on because it was snowing. But we thought as children that it would be worse to put the coat over the costume. So we put the coats under our costumes.
Oh, I remember doing that too.
All of my like growing up pictures of Halloween are like puffy coat ghost, puffy coat Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz.
It's like the marshmallow Stay Puft Man.
But it was just like, but it was hilarious because we thought that was somehow better than having the coat over the costume that we had worked so hard on, or that we were so like
But
excited
it was
to
to
do.
us though. It was because you
Yeah,
got to
it
show the
was.
costume,
I'm
and
like,
that's
I
all
look
that
at the pictures
counts.
now, and I'm like, what was I doing? But it was a lot of fun. I lived in a neighborhood that gave out a lot of candies, so we made out like every year. We did really, really well. And then my little brother is allergic to certain things, so we would.
Give
He
even
was allergic
more.
to milk, so that meant we poured
Oh
all the
my
stuff
gosh.
together, and anything that was chocolate was mine. Anything that wasn't chocolate was his, and then he got like an extra
Sounds like
bag
a
of
win.
candy
I was
corn
gonna
on
say
top.
that's a win because
So
the best
so
ones
I'm
are.
like all the chocolate, and he's like
Yeah.
all the candy corn. Like it was a perfect. It worked out really well.
I do. I'm thinking of that. I miss those days where because nowadays I feel old every time I say it. I feel like there's not a lot of kids that trick or treat anymore, at least where I'm at.
Mm.
And I'm like, man, I miss the days where all your friends, it was the hype, and you were bringing pillowcases because you were
Oh yeah.
getting that whole bag was getting full, and you would just go out, and then we did the same thing because growing
Yep.
up in New England, it was cold, not as cold as upstate New York, of course, but winter
I started
coats,
to nod.
all
I have
that
no idea what
stuff.
you're talking about.
Yes, it did snow on
We
Halloween plenty times.
we
Yeah.
still get a lot of trick or treaters. I do remember
Yeah, we
one
do
cold
too, actually.
Halloween.
We don't out here.
'cause-
Maybe it's all the religious nuts in Idaho. No offense if anyone's
Yeah.
religious, but I
No,
think
here
that's the
here
Mennonites and whatnot.
I think it really depends on your neighborhood. Like where I live now, there's a ton.
Mhm.
The place that I used to live before had almost none, and I used to get like so much candy every year, and then nobody would show up. And I was like, ah. But now
Yeah,
here
well,
it's
our-
like Kid Central in this neighborhood, so it works out pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before COVID, we had a thing in our neighborhood where they did like an egg hunt and a costume contest, so all the
yeah.
kids would come,
Oh, cool.
and then it would kick off trick or treating. They didn't do it last year, and I don't think they're doing it this year. But no, we get a good turnout. But I mean, I love it because I just sit on the driveway, drink beer, and pass out candy, and my husband takes the kids around. And I
Yeah.
do
Scooter
set up the projector, and I
gang.
have Nightmare Before Christmas on repeat on the garage.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
That's really fun.
No, they don't
Well-
take the scooters out on Halloween. They'll run over trick or
That's true.
treaters.
That's very true. But that's just scooter gang or die. Josh, I'm in the scooter gang. But Carla, before we
not.
go, I just want to say thank you for joining us, taking time out of your night. This has been a lot of fun. Like we've got a lot of great insight, things of that nature. Go ahead and let everybody know how they can find you, where they can find you, whether it's your
Sure.
writings or anything.
Yeah, sure. So the easiest way to find my stuff online is to just follow me on Twitter at BeerBabe. Just be warned, I tweet a lot, so if you're not into that, I'm not offended. Just don't follow me. But in general, I'm writing now a column every week for a magazine that's launched out of Maine called Beer and Weed Magazine. I only write about the beer side because I don't do the
Oh,
weed
that's
side.
cool.
But basically, I have a column that's just about Maine beer. However, most of it isn't online, so it's an actual
Sweet.
physical magazine. But very, very cool. And just in general, I'm usually out and about on the interwebs, ranting about your websites and things like that. But my handle is at BeerBabe, and I do encourage anybody who is coming to visit the Portland or the general Maine area, hit me up. I will totally help you with recommendations when you come, because the last thing I want is for you to like go by Yelp or whatever and go to the 2 breweries that I hate and then tell me that my town sucks. So I really need you to like go ahead, hit me
I
up.
co-sign that. Like I pimp
I'm
Yes,
Portland
I'm
more
100% happy to tell you exactly where to go. Or at least give you like 20 suggestions that'll totally overwhelm you. It'll be great.
Give 20
So,
yeah, but you get
personal
20
suggestions.
suggestions. Yeah, you get 20 suggestions, but at least hit up 2 of those and you
Yeah.
might find
Right,
something good there.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's hard to go wrong, but some of the more like well-known like Google results are not necessarily the best breweries that might fit what you're looking for. So like
Yeah.
there's just so much going on that I'd love to share that with people. I just want people to like kind of have a great experience when
Well,
they
that's
come.
what I always tell people
And
first.
maybe
Is like,
if you're coming through, I'll have a beer with you. I don't care.
perfect.
So
See, I'm gonna keep that in mind because I'm hoping to come home
definitely do that.
soon enough. But I'm like you. There's Portland, Maine. I talk about it. Can't talk about it enough. It's probably one of my favorite beer towns to go to. Definitely hit her up and ask recommendations. And then one of the first questions I always ask is, what are you into beer wise? And that's a very important
Yeah.
question as well. So
Yes. Yeah, be prepared to help me narrow it down, please. Because
yes,
they're like
absolutely.
you were saying, however many 26 whatever breweries in
There's a
Portland
lot.
proper. That's a lot. So
Right.
just help me out. But even if you don't, even if it's things like, oh, what breweries can I bring my kids to or my dog to or whatever, I have that information and all kinds of things. So
It's like
we're very
That might be
friendly
my
and very
question if I ever get up there.
Yeah.
What brewery can I bring my kids
all
to?
of them are kid friendly, which is awesome.
Mm.
Like they've made an environment that is not like a bar. They've made an environment that's not, kind of really well patrolled. There's not drunk people. It's really nice. Like no one will turn your nose up at you in Portland for bringing a kid to any of these breweries. And there are just some that are harder to get in and out of if you've got kids. Like Bissell Brothers, for example, has plenty of space, but there's a lot of people. So sometimes you have to kind of take that into account. But there's no place you're going to go where you're going to be like, yeah, there's a baby in this brewery. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
We do up here.
I've only felt weird about that once, and I was in Gainesville, and because it's a college town, I feel like
I was going to say.
I feel like everybody just stopped and stared. Was it Swamphead, which is a gorgeous brewery, great beer, and the employees were nice to us. Nobody was mean to us by any means. And I went on the tour by myself, and my husband sat with the kids, and the kids played games and everything was fine. But it was just funny because when we walked in, we've never felt all eyes on us before.
You're like, you're not in our grade.
Right, exactly. And I had already had to endure going into Target the week school starts, and everything was orange and blue. It was terrible. But the brewery was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, last but not least, I was going to plug the nonprofit that I work for that actually directly impacts the craft beer industry. So if everybody hit up the Bottle Share, go to Twitter, Bottle Share 1, Instagram, Bottle Share, go to the bottleshare.org. Big announcement that we made yesterday was that Arrived, which is a point of sale system that a lot of people use, a lot of breweries use, has now added the Roundup option. And with that, they've made Bottle Share one of the options. So if anybody's listening, has a favorite brewery that they use this system, hey, just kindly be like, hey, Bottle Share. And all the proceeds, it's everything we do, we give back to the craft beer industry. So if you are in need within the craft beer industry, especially, with all the never ending pandemic going on, we granted out $124,000 last year. I believe we've already broken that this year. So everything counts. Everything goes right back into it. So please follow that. Please check out Carla on Twitter. Follow her columns. Amazing. It's been a lot of fun here tonight. We probably could have talked for honestly like 2 more hours I wasn't. No, we had a lot of fun. We definitely want to have you back on at some point for sure to talk some more. And Hops Geek News, check us out. Hops Geek News, just follow us on Twitter, Hops Geek News, Instagram, Hops Geek News. And then of course the show is Hops News. So follow that wherever you get your podcasts, things of that nature. And until next time, cheers everybody.
Cheers.